I want to take a minute to help the police, specifically my local sheriff, Jason Trundy, but this is for all police in the US today, because you're at very serious risk, and you might not know, because no one's talking about it. There'll be a few little pieces of this video that are specific to Sheriff Trundy, but if you're a law enforcement officer, know that there are people in your community who see what I see and agree with what I'm saying and sent you this video to help keep you safe and our communities safe. Sheriff Trundy, I don't know if you remember, but we know each other. I worked in recovery for years, and I deeply respect your work with the recovery community in Midcoast, Maine. You've done a lot to help a lot of people struggling with addiction. I voted for you, and I served on a nonprofit board with your wonderful wife. And you're at grave risk. To show you this risk, we need to cover a little bit of history. It'll be quick, but I promise it's relevant. After World War II, there were trials. Thousands upon thousands of Germans who ran the camps and sent people to the camps were found guilty. Some got life sentences, but most got rope neckties. The conviction rate was over 75% because unlike most trials where the prosecution must prove guilt, in these trials the burden of proof was on the defense to prove innocence. So the only people who were found innocent were the ones who Jewish people said were not evil. If no victims would testify to the innocence of a German soldier or police officer, they were deemed guilty. All the German soldiers and police, from the bottom all the way up to the top brass who were tried, offered the same defense, and it was this: I was just following orders. That became known as the Nuremberg defense, and the international community decided that it was not enough. As a global community, we decided that people are responsible for their actions regardless of whether they're following orders or not. This is true under US law, including in the military. US troops are not required to follow orders unquestioningly. They're required to follow lawful orders. If an order is unlawful, they have both the right and the legal obligation not to follow it, because we all have that right and obligation as human beings. Do you start to see the risk that you're in? What this administration is doing is illegal by any measure. They are kidnapping people for the color of their skin. They are kidnapping full US-born citizens and holding them in camps. If you don't believe me, go run a search on US citizen detained and scroll the thousands and thousands of results. It's not even rare. And let's talk about undocumented people. Being in this country without documentation is a civil misdemeanor. It's the same level of crime as having truck windows that are tinted too dark. And for that, this administration is sending masked, unidentified thugs to people's homes and communities, tearing apart families, and sending people to camps in El Salvador that more and more people keep being sent to, but no one ever leaves. Do you know what that means? This is not just against US law and the US Constitution. All of this is flagrant violation of international law, and there will be consequences. Right now, this administration is using you, officer, you, Sheriff Trundy, to enact these crimes. So if you, as a local police officer serving a community, were put on trial today for complicity with this administration's crimes against humanity, what would the evidence be about how you're conducting yourself? You personally. Have you contacted immigration to send people to these camps? Or have you refused to follow these deeply unlawful, unethical orders and worked to actually protect your community from these threats in a way that would lead both the immigrant community and the entire community to speak up in your defense personally? I'll speak again specifically to Sheriff Trundy, but if you're an officer, see how much of this applies to you. This might be uncomfortable to hear, but I genuinely am trying to help both you and our community. And also, I am angry with you, and you might hear a little of that. But I mean it when I say that I'm trying to help you, so I ask for your patience with my anger. So far, you've refused to take a stance on this. You've said that you would not commit to not working with immigration, and you would not commit to working with them either. But in the meantime, your internal policy, whatever it's been, has the sheriffs under your authority calling immigration when they encounter someone who's brown and speaks Spanish and turning these people over in handcuffs to these thugs who send them to camps. I understand how this might feel like a centrist, middle-of-the-road position to you, trying to balance two sides in a tough position. But can you see how, to the victims who are being sent to these camps, it does not feel like a centrist position at all? There's a couple of points worth bearing in mind when you consider this. The first is, again, being undocumented is a civil misdemeanor. So let's compare it to how you treat other civil misdemeanors. When you encounter someone whose windows are tinted too dark or whose tires are too wide, do you call masked, unidentified thugs to have them kidnapped to a camp that no one ever leaves? If not, then why the discrepancy in policy? It sure looks like an explicit targeting of immigrants, brown people in particular. I don't know what the other explanation would be. So I'm asking you, if you were a brown Spanish-speaking person in the US, would you feel safe these days when you saw a police car, knowing that immigration takes people regardless of their immigration status and sends them to camps that no one ever leaves and no one can be tracked in? Let alone if you were committing the terrible civil misdemeanor of not having the papers that the state says you have to have on you at all times. These policies are tearing apart families. I know multi-generational families in Waldo County who are currently hiding undocumented people from you, Sheriff Trundy. You understand what I'm telling you? This is 1930s Germany. But there's one very significant difference, and it puts you at much more risk. It's that 1930s Germany didn't have 1930s Germany to look back at. They didn't learn about this in school. We did. So they had the ethical excuse, flimsy as it was, of some level of ignorance. You don't. You know what happened in Germany. Let me be really clear. One of the German leaders who was tried at Nuremberg was Fritz Sauckel. He ran the labor camps for Germany, and his last words before his crimes earned him a rope necktie were these: "Make Germany great again." Oh, you thought this administration made that slogan up? No. Do you not think that all of those people who were committing these crimes in Germany were offered the exact same words that you're being offered now about how this is cleaning up the country, making the country safer? This is what these people say. The playbook is written out in black and white, and we're watching it play out again. And remember that all those people who got rope neckties had the highest levels of legal protection that Germany could offer. So your qualified immunity, it means nothing in the face of the consequences that will follow this administration's crimes. I don't know what form these consequences are going to take, but I do know that in order for this country and the world to heal from the horrors being committed today, those consequences must be as real and serious as the ones that followed World War II, and no one can get a pass. No one can be above the law, including you. Especially you. But I feel like I'm doing you a disservice in this warning video, Sheriff Trundy, and other police, because I know you. Not well, but I know how you've moved in my community, and I respect so much of your work. I know that you joined the police force to serve and protect our community. So, beyond the very real legal and physical threats that you're under because you're collaborating with these criminals who are kidnapping my neighbors, let's talk about the ethical foundations, about who you are. Because in many ways, this is a much greater risk than any of the legal ones. Sheriff Trundy or any other officer, are you Christian? If so, genuinely, whose side do you think that Jesus would be on? The side of the poor brown families who are being brutalized and having their family members taken away to camps that no one ever leaves? Or the side of the brutal masked thugs tearing apart families, forcing babies into hiding, and sending people to the camps because of the color of their skin? This is one of the few places where the Old Testament is more gentle than Jesus. The Old Testament just says, you must treat the foreigner who lives among you as a native to your land. Leviticus 19:34. Jesus had none of that patience. In Matthew 25:41, he said, "Away with you, you cursed ones, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his demons. For I was hungry, and you didn't feed me. I was thirsty, and you didn't give me a drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me into your home." And they will reply, "Lord, when did we ever see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and not help you?" And I will answer, "When you refused to help the least of my brothers and sisters, you were refusing to help me." This is one of the points the Bible is most clear and consistent on, and there's no exceptions written into that for law enforcement officers. Jesus is talking to you. When you meet Jesus, do you think he's going to accept the Nuremberg defense that you were just following orders? Or do you think he's only going to care about what you personally chose to do? Because Old Testament to New, the Bible is telling you what to do today. There's nowhere in the Bible that says to tear families apart and send people to camps based on the color of their skin. The strongest words Jesus ever speaks are about this exact issue, and he does not play around. Jesus said that if anyone was ever going to harm a child, it would be better if a stone were tied to that person's neck and they were dropped in the ocean. I personally know children who are harmed by Waldo County sheriffs. They were harmed watching their parents violently kidnapped by brutal thugs and dragged away. They're harmed because their families are now terrified to leave the house. And they're harmed because there's no one they can turn to for protection because it is the police who are committing the crimes. So who are you, officer? We all understand that immigrants are not the problem in this country any more than Jews were the problem in 1930s Germany. The entire idea is absurd. Beyond doing a ton of jobs that citizens don't want, undocumented immigrants pay $100 billion in taxes every year. They're currently subsidizing their own oppression. When history looks back at 1930s Germany, it's really clear what the problem was, and it wasn't immigrants. When history looks back on this period in the US, it'll be really clear what the problem was, and it wasn't immigrants. So which side of history will you be on? Which side of ethics will you be on? Which side of the law will you be on? And which side of Jesus will you be on? If the answer to these questions were different, it might be a hard choice if you had to choose between ethics and Jesus or the law and Jesus. But the answer to every one of these questions is the same. My wife is a US-born citizen who happens to be a brown woman. Every time she leaves the house, I am terrified that I'll never see her again because of you, Sheriff Trundy. If one of your sheriffs pulls my wife over and for whatever reason they call immigration, my wife is likely to be kidnapped and sent to a camp. Immigration does not care if people are here legally or not. They are just rounding up brown people, and many of the people sent to those camps are never seen or heard from again. If you don't believe me, then you simply do not understand the actual threats to the community that you serve and swore to protect, and you need to get up to speed. Sheriff Trundy, if you don't believe me, call me. Anyone from the nonprofit I served with your wife could get you my number, and I'm happy to tell you about the very real victims of your policies and your failures to protect our community or uphold your oaths. So far, you have not only done nothing to stop this from happening, you are facilitating these illegal kidnappings. My neighbors are terrified to go outside because of you. You are who they fear. And the last time I mentioned one of your sheriffs in one of my videos, I said they were racially profiling people, and you responded in a press release that you found that accusation offensive. So let's put our offenses on a scale, Sheriff Trundy. On one hand, you are tearing apart families, sending people to camps for misdemeanors, leaving babies parentless, and causing unspeakable harm. People see your cruisers as predatory threats in the community that they have to hide from, because they are. You are the greatest threat to public safety in Waldo County today. You are what children hide from and what families fear. On the other hand, from your position of authority and power, there's your feeling offended that someone online called your racist policy racist. In reality, Sheriff Trundy, which of those weighs more? The largest threat to my community today, officer, is you. Without your aid, the brutal, masked, unidentified kidnappers don't have the info to terrorize us. In Maine, specifically, when they show up here, it's because you called them. You are summoning these criminals to our towns and handcuffing their victims for them. So I'm asking you, Sheriff Trundy, for the sake of your soul, the Constitution you swore to uphold, international law, and the communities that I live in that you're sworn to protect, I'm asking you to actually protect our communities by arresting immigration officers on sight. They are violent serial kidnappers and criminals. They will face their crimes, either here on criminal trial when this administration no longer has power, or when they're gone. Please do your job and protect us from them. Help us feel safer, instead of facilitating the threat. I'm asking you to publish a non-cooperation commitment and state publicly that if immigration ever sets foot in Waldo County, we can call you, and you will protect our community and the people who live here from these violent serial kidnappers from away. Arrest them on sight for their crimes. What I'm asking, Sheriff Trundy, is this. Are you going to uphold your oaths to protect our community? Or are you going to continue being the threat that we need to organize and protect ourselves from? because that's who you've been. If, for whatever reason, you're not willing to uphold your oaths, the law, and the Bible in this way, then I'll ask you to at least stop collaborating with them. The Maine House and Senate passed LD 1971, which prohibits police from cooperating with immigration. The only reason it's not law is because Janet Mills is a spineless coward who's trying to play some political games with my neighbors and my family's lives for her doomed Senate campaign. If we had an ethical governor with a backbone who represented the will of the people, it would be law already. So if you're not willing to actually protect us from immigration by arresting them as criminals, then at least adopt LD 1971 as Waldo County Sheriff's policy and stop helping them. I'm angry with you, Sheriff Trundy, and one of the reasons I'm speaking to you is because I think that you'll be able to hear me. I don't think the state police could hear what I'm saying right now. They're too deeply embedded in it. But if you're a state police representative and you can hear what I'm saying, I hope you adopt these same policies. The Maine State Police should absolutely adopt 1971 as law, because it should be, and it's just political nonsense that's the reason it's not yet. Sheriff Trundy and any other officials who listened this far, thank you for your time. I know this is deeply uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for all of us. And I know that you're not in an easy position. That said, I think it's very important for you to hear this, and I'm glad that you stayed. I know this is not how it's being presented to you elsewhere, but because I married a Latina woman, I'm close to the Latino community in Maine, and I'm therefore close to the impacts of your policies on the ground. I see the screaming children whose parents are gone. We don't know where they are. They're in some camp somewhere. This is where it's real. The people who are taken don't just disappear. They leave massive, gaping wounds in our communities. Parentless children, jobs not getting done, missing husbands, wives, fathers. We are the ones left to try and heal from those horrific crimes. Because these people did nothing wrong. Nothing worse than having a tinted window. It's important that you're aware of these impacts so that you can act both ethically and legally to protect yourself and our community. I hope it's clear how this video is genuinely meant to help you. The decisions that will keep you safe as officers today are the same ones that will keep our communities safe. So let's all recognize how this administration is doing the same thing that happened in 1930s Germany, and it faces the same fate. This administration will not last. Its crimes will be accounted for. You are not unaccountable. You have a badge number and a name. You have an address. People know you in the community. So you will be on the block for this. Put yourself on the right side. The side of the community you're sworn to, the constitutional law you swore to uphold, Jesus, safety, and justice. Thank you. If you're not a police officer and you're in a position to do so, I invite you to speak to your local police. They really need to hear from you. Most of the messaging they're getting is not from people who these policies actually affect. No one's warning them of the risk that they're putting themselves at by collaborating with these horrific crimes. Many don't know about the camps. They don't know what they're doing is against both the Constitution and international law. They don't understand the horrific harm they're causing when they call these kidnapper thugs to tear someone out of a community. And they need to hear it. I have very serious critiques of the system of policing in this country, and many people wearing badges joined for genuinely good reasons and want to be people who serve and protect our communities. Communicating with them is how we help them be the people they signed up to be, and actually serve and protect our communities. You can share your anger. Just try to do so in a way that creates pathways for them, instead of just damning them. Because whatever you think of the police, they are the ones enacting these horrifying policies. So their personal decisions determine whether a baby in your community will ever see their parents again. Whether parents will be ripped away from their families and disappeared to hell camps. Individual police officers' decisions change entire communities' lives. So let's help them make the right decisions for the sake of our neighbors, our communities, and the world.